what they call them, rom-coms, romantic comedies are terrible for women to watch.
I
Absolutely
know.
terrible.
Let me tell you, I read an article about this before, and I hadn't really considered it until I read the article, but it said if the things that happen in these rom-com romantic comedies happen to you in real life, you would call the police. You would have restraining orders on them.
Hmm.
And like they use like all these examples of movies, like Hitched, another Will Smith movie
Hmm.
where he's running after the girl, and he, in order to stop her to declare his love, he jumps on her car.
Hmm.
I was think, and yeah, if a dude came and jumped on my car, let me tell you, we gonna have to fill out a police report about how he got ran over for jumping on my car. You know, you at my house, uninvited,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
all kind of things. Yeah. So the
Yeah.
rom-com actions are really,
Stalker.
yeah, it's definitely
Hmm.
realistic
Assault.
patient of what would be acceptable in real life.
Right. And so you was talking about somebody jumping on the hood of your car. Believe it or not, that really happened to me. I was in my 20s. Somebody jumped on my car, and I just went real fast and eventually hit the brake, and they flew off. However, um, you know,
It's so
watch it.
funny. I'm sorry, I gotta sit with this.
So that's why I laugh so hard. Like, yeah, she must have been watching that one. Um, but all these different things that happen that create this, oh my gosh, yes, that is so love, and it shapes these things, and then we go out and do these things, you're getting arrested.
Or you expecting these things, and people in their right mind are not doing it, and that
No.
they don't love me, or they
Right.
must love me because this is what my expectation of love means.
Mm-hmm.
I talk about this to some of my friends about um, my interaction with men, because, and marriage, my thoughts about marriage, because honestly, growing up, I didn't have a lot of examples of healthy marriages, so I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know what a healthy marriage
Same.
actually looked like. And all I had one aunt uncle that was married, and then the Cosbys.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a lot of my expectations about how a marriage was supposed to happen just based off of the Cosby show. And then
Mm-hmm.
talking to my therapist, she's like, "Well, that's not for real." I was like, "Well, I know that. I mean, I know my feelings and my perception
Concept.
had to adjust to what real love and relationships meant to me,
Mm-hmm.
what it does mean to me, and I'm actually having to redefine that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, redefine it.
So you're talking about some cognitive constructs,
Mhm.
things you have decided, this is what this looks like, this is what this looks like, so you tied it to your perception, which is absolutely right. But when you talk about perception, you're talking about things you can see, smell, hear, speak, touch. So
Mhm.
all of those things come into play when you're talking about shaping your perception. So here you've been visually watching this, you've been hearing this, and now it's helped to shape the definition of what you think this is. I always tell people relationships are work. If you are a husband or a wife, that is a job that you never get off work. You work 7 days a week, ain't no vacation, none of that stuff, because you're always a husband and you are always a wife. You
Mhm.
don't get, you don't, you know what? In the natural, we take a vacation from the job.
Mhm.
We ain't talking to that job until the vacation is over. I see y'all when I come back. I'm going on vacation. Don't bother me. Don't talk to me. Don't call me. Right? But when you're a husband or a wife, you can't pick up, hello, hey, honey, babe, I'm going on vacation. I'm not going to see you until I don't want you to call me
Some people
or
do.
interrupt my vacation.
some people do that more than is appropriate. But a big part of
Yeah,
that,
they end up in divorce.
and there are a ton of divorces. And the thing is, a lot of people, a lot of women that I know or hear of, they want to get married, but they don't necessarily want to be wives. And so, in my own quest for this whole femininity thing, so I can again redefine what um, this virtuous woman and femininity is for me.
Mhm.
I'm in a couple of different programs. Some I paid for, some of them, I just kind of follow. And a lot of the women want to be um, taken care of. They
Mhm.
don't necessarily want to have this committed, cherishable, committed relationship.
Mhm.
They basically want to be a glorified nanny or just a glorified nanny. Basically, they just want to. And I've had a lot of men say that the women, um, when they want to get married so that they don't have to work.
Mhm.
And maybe in a different time, maybe that would have a different generation, maybe that would have been acceptable. But I just want to know, like, again, when we talk about this eulogy, what is my
Mhm.
eulogy say? I do want to have some kind of impact on,
Mhm.
even if I was a wife who didn't, just as a woman who did not have to work, I
Mhm.
still want to have an impact on society. As a
Mhm.
woman in my work now, I
Mhm.
do things that I enjoy doing that I feel has an impact on society. I design my work and my life around that. So
Mhm.
maybe these women just aren't happy in their jobs or something. Maybe they haven't found what their
Well,
passion project.
here's one of the biggest changes. One of the biggest changes that people neglect. You, you, me, myself, and I. When you look in the mirror, how you carry yourself, the actions or behaviors that you have, you are leaving a impact somewhere, kind of like footprints. You know what I'm saying? You could tell this person's been here because they have these footprints, or you could tell they've been over here. So it's about how you personally carry yourself before you even do anything for the work.
Mhm.
You, how you carry yourself, what it is you speak, your actions. That's the first and most important change. Like waves in the water. Okay, you see the waves behind me, right? It's the ripple effect.
Mhm.
So the waves, it's going to carry what your actions, that one behavior, it's going to carry, it's going to move. And it continues. The movement is continuous.
Mhm.
So what are you putting out there? That
Mhm.
would be my question. What are you putting out there? What is it that you're doing that has impacted somebody's day? It could be something as simple as smiling at someone.
Mhm.
You smile at somebody, and all of a sudden their head perks up and they kind of look around to pay attention to their surroundings. We neglect these little bitty tiny actions, but they are movements. They are movements. When you go out of your house and see your neighbor, just waving, hey, how you doing?
Mhm.
Benefits them. I have talked to people. I wasn't even in a conversation. One of the young ladies I went to graduate school with, I wasn't even in a conversation with her. I was coming to class and something had frustrated me and bothered me. My teacher noticed. Gail, you okay? No, I'm not. But I'm gonna be quiet today and just chill. And she was like, no, come on, talk about it, because I'm communications, right? So once I shared my frustration, my experience, what I have went through, and why it hurt me, it gave my friend permission to open up and talk about her situation. Things that we didn't even know she was fighting, like homelessness. Nobody knew she was going through that, but she opened up and told her story. That's why I talked about how powerful a narrative is. Because sometimes you unapologetically Give somebody else permission to feel, to express, to even understand. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to somebody and they said, you really do understand. And sometimes that's doing just what you're doing right now, just listening. You got your hand up like, okay, say that again. You know, you haven't said anything, but you said everything just with leaning in and focusing on what's being said, not listening to just respond. And that's what happens to us. We take one, I say all of this, and you took this right here and say, I'm gonna respond to that when she finished. Now you miss all this context, everything that's around that. When you were talking about the news and the sound bits, that's what we get. We get this one little piece and we miss all this context that's around it that can change the meaning. And we do that in our everyday conversations. Um, you helped me become a better listener. And I hope that I am, but I think I am.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely. And that was a very chaotic time for me. So
so and it was just crazy because I was in a listening class, right? And at the time, I thought I was a great listener. I'm telling my teacher, yeah, I'm a pretty good listener. They like, who's a good listener? Me. I'm a good listener. And they was like, okay, here's your assignment. And I had to go talk to some people and ask them about my listening skills. And boy, when I ran across you, you was like, you're a terrible listener. You don't listen to nothing. And I was like, oh my God, what? But it was what I needed at the time to help me become a better listener. That is one of the number one compliments I get to this day because of that experience. I think that they should teach listening in every, I, I think they should teach it early, not college. They need to go way earlier, like middle school, to teach people how to listen because we're constantly teaching people how to respond, how to focus on this one little thing, you know, through our behaviors and our mannerisms. So why not educate in how to listen? I heard a speaker say once she grew up assuming that everybody had some amazing gift or experience about them because she said she'd be at her grandparents' house and her grandmother would come back and be like, do you know who that was? He's a Russian ballet dancer. She was the mayor of so and so, such and such. He was, I don't know, a Purple Heart recipient. This person was this. She was the runner up for Miss America. So they had this traffic coming through, but because her grandmother was such a good listener, and wanted to hear what was unique about people, that they got to learn all these things. If you are focusing on one particular part that you want to respond to, you miss all this other information. Maybe Vernice has a gift that she haven't tapped into yet, but through dialogue and listening to her, I can say, you know what, it sounds like you'd be great at this. And those are the conversations I'm having all the time with students. You know, it sounds like you're really passionate about this. Have you thought about? And I just ask questions. It's up to the individual to answer them, not necessarily to me. I'm not even holding, you know, that level of accountability. I'm talking about answering the questions for yourself. We have those conversations anyway. I told you about the committee, me, myself, and I. We argue over what I'm aware, you know, where I'm going that day, where I'm going first that day, you know, those type of things. We have these little conversations with ourselves where we're trying to figure out the strategy. People won't even admit to that. But you've decided you're going to do something and then doubt creeps in and be like, can you really do that? Are you sure? Do you really have the means to do that? Is this really possible? Nobody's going to support you in that. That's that self-doubt trying to creep in and have a voice.
Mhm.
Do you speak back to it? Do you say, I can do this? I will have that support. Can you put that out there in the universe? I will accomplish this. I can do that. There are a lot of times we talk ourselves out of opportunities as opposed to engaging and embracing opportunities.
Mhm.
Oh, that'll never work. I'm not going to do that. Right? You just talked yourself out of it.
Mhm.
So these are just like random thoughts. You were talking about you don't like fiction. I love it, right? I'm a world-renowned detective, right? Because I solve crimes all over, from the UK to the United States to Africa. I'm always watching something where I have to investigate a crime, catch a serial killer. I'm just a detective by trade. If this teaching thing doesn't work out, I could be a detective.
Well, I'm not
And
saying I don't like it, but it is, I just use it very sparingly.
mhm. It's my escape. It's
Mhm.
what I love to do. I like movies. I like action. I like things that require some type of thought. I got to figure them out. I'm not crazy about sci-fi, right? But I am crazy about the complexities of an individual because that communications is so deeply rooted. What do you do when it's easy to do the wrong thing? Do
Mhm.
you still have integrity? Do you still say, no, that's not right? What happens when a decision becomes really tough? It could cost you your career, right? Or somebody's trying to inflict harm. How do you even handle that? Not necessarily a physical assault, but maybe an attack on character. And these are things that we experience all the time. So when I watch these shows, I'm looking for the complexity in my character, in their communications. How do they deal with circumstances that are uncomfortable or events that or situations that are beyond their control? What is your response? Are you reactive? Just tear it up, you know? Or do you respond? Are you strategic? Do you plan? I love to see the complexity of a character. This is how you figure out who you like and hate in movies, right? You ever have that character? I just don't like them. You
Mhm.
know, my mom does not like Lawrence Fishburne because of his role in Ike. I said, Ma, you do know he was just playing a part. She's talking about, yeah, but he played a little too well for me. And that's a sign of how good his acting abilities are.
Or either how much that really resonated with her.
Mm, yes, that too. Got to do
Mhm.
some self examination now.
Mhm.
So, these characters that you love to hate, I know for me, like I watched Power, right? And boy, that Tyreek, I just wanted to choke him. I was like, look, he need a whooping. You know, I was so mad.
Mhm.
Um, but his character had layers and it stemmed from some pain, right? Some things he just didn't understand. You know, he had no idea what his parents had to go through to create the opportunities that he was being afforded, that he was squandering. You
Mhm.
know, I couldn't stand Tyreek. I really didn't like him. However, I was crazy about Ghost. And it wasn't the fact that Ghost is fine, right? It was the complexity of his character. He was with this woman who was like, "You're gonna be the best drug dealer of all time," and he was like, "You don't want more than that." See, he started to evolve. He wanted to go legit. And now here's this woman saying, yeah, baby, you could do it. You could be a business owner. You can run for office. You could do this. So, yes, his appeal, there was some appeal there because there was some growth there in that instance. Somebody who believed in his ability as opposed to criminal activity. So I could even see why he was drawn to that particular person. How many times in life have we been with somebody who's limited in their thinking and we desire to think bigger? We desire more. Our mind, that self-exploration is saying, maybe I can do this. But you got this other person who done put you in this cute little box, like right here, this is all you can do in your life. But your dream is superseded their limitation.
Mhm.
So I love to see the complexities in my character and why they make the decisions they make and what they're trying to get to. And recognizing there is an element of error there. See, Vernice is not going to make every right decision. She's going to make some mistakes. Gail is going to make some mistakes. So we're all flawed as human beings. We're not always going to choose the right thing. But that adds to this complexity of character.
Mhm.
How bad do we want something? You and I have made major relocations. Clearly, we desired something different.
Mhm.
And the desire was strong enough to prompt us to take action.
Mhm.
Maybe you didn't do everything right when you got to Arkansas. You know what I'm saying? You made some mistakes like, you know what, I probably shouldn't have did that. And this was not the best area to move into. I should have taken the place over on some, like there are little things that we start to find out and realize in that transition. We start to see other opportunities, right? After making some mistakes and saying, well, you know what, that wasn't ideal. Now you have this network because you decided to try some other things.
Mhm.
And so now you're building your community.
Mhm.
And when I say your community, I'm not just talking about the area around you. I'm talking about your interactions, who you socialize with. That's a community.
Mhm.
You're building your community of like-minded individuals with a variety of gifts and talents. Maybe the people are not extraordinary, but their skill set is.
Mhm.
Because we're all just ordinary people with extraordinary gifts.
Mhm. Mhm.
So you were talking about my assignment, this eulogy assignment. I actually can't wait to do it because I am going to ask a series of questions. For one, I'm going to make all my students old. So if you're 18, I now said you're going to live to 90.
Mhm. Right.
What kind of impact do you want to have on your family, your community, and your society as a
Mhm.
whole? You're going to
Mhm.
have to answer those questions for me.
Mhm.
What are you leaving behind? So we were talking about legacy earlier today. We were talking about generational wealth, a legacy of generational wealth. But there also is this generation of knowledge,
Mhm.
right? This
Mhm.
desire to be a lifelong learner.
Mhm.
See, because if you're no longer learning, you're no longer living.
Mhm. Agreed.
Those two go hand in hand. You should always be having some type of experience, learning something new or a different way to accomplish something. I always use the analogy about skinning the cat, right? And what I tell people is I may start from the tail and work my way back. Well, you may start from the head and work your way back. And if we had one more person in here, they might start in the middle and
Mhm.
that'll be their strategy. But the bottom line is we all skinning the cat.
Okay.
So, and I think that happens during our lifetime. So I know for me, being 26 plus plus, right? Stuff
Right.
that I used to do when I was younger, I still do that stuff, but I do it a different way, right? I can't do it like I'm 21, full of vigor and extremely quick. You know, it's I I don't have that anymore. So now I got to be more strategic. I have to see the entire thing and visualize and
Mhm.
then put myself in a position where I think things are going to happen. So I have to incorporate my strategy. When you're younger, you got a lot of energy. A lot of times you don't develop a strategy. You just all over the place because you got the energy.
Right.
like juggling. You got all these balls, you just juggling everything, right? Well, when you get older, you get more strategic because you need the hand and eye coordination, and now it becomes a process that you can examine, but still accomplish, just a whole nother way of doing it.
Right.
And to be born here, you're going to live, and things are constantly going to change. So even when they evolve, sometimes they deteriorate, right? So if you have this thing and it's deteriorating, but you still desire to accomplish this thing, how do you go about that?
Right.
How do you still get it done? How do you accomplish your to-do list? That usually looks like strategy, okay? And prioritizing. That's the other thing. So when you're young, you don't have a ton of responsibilities, right? You're at home with your parents and they pay the bills. You work part-time, you get to keep your little money. So you just pretty much out there and do whatever it is you want to do, right? But when you get older and you have your own children and you got your own place and you got to pay bills and you got to pay a mortgage and then you got to pay for all the bills, like all the utilities and trash and water and not
They
to
still
mention
keep
lights.
their money that they
Mhm.
earn their little part-time job or whatever.
Right, right. So priorities shift depending on responsibilities. And once that shifts, then what is pleasurable to you or things that you enjoy doing, you now need strategy to be able to do those things. So right now, you're you, right? You have you. You can go and visit whenever you get ready. You just pick up, you know what? I think I'm going out of town today. Yep, let's do it. But if you had, let's say, a 3-year-old and a 8-year-old, you wouldn't be able to just pick up and put them at like, hey, come on, we leaving. No, you need a whole plan around their school, their schedule, where you gonna go, like when you get there, because you could just wing it by yourself. You got kids, you want them to be safe, right? So some places that you might go that you ain't afraid of, it's a different story for them because of their age and being impressionable, and you want to make sure that there is a regimen in place for them, keep them on schedule. So those priorities start to shift and change. If you marry, you can't just pick up, and leave and hey, honey, I'll be back. I'm going 4 days and 5 nights to Hawaii. What? If your husband be like, all right, babe, see you when you get back, it's a problem. There's an issue someplace. So as you get older and you start to engage in more activities and different relationships, then how you go about doing things, like if you plan a girls trip, you talk to your husband about that. Me and the girls, we want to go to Hawaii and we found this deal. Those trips are usually months in advance, right? Sometimes a year in advance where you've done some planning. They are not spontaneous, just all of a sudden. Yeah, let's do it. So it's something to think about, that lifelong learner, how to build healthy relationships, how to prioritize. I don't think these things are a real issue at 18, 19, 20 years old. You just kind of wing it
It depends, but
on the
it's
individual,
yeah, understood.
but there are opportunities just to wing it. You don't have to be as strategic. Here's what it is. You have some cushion there.
Yeah.
So if you are 26 plus plus and you run into the wall, it's going to hurt. But if you are 18, 19, it might still hurt, but you'll just get up and, all right, I'm good. Walk away. 26 plus plus, you'd be like, call the ambulance. 911. You might need to be resuscitated, right? Or put on oxygen or something like that. So more is required in this particular area when in lieu of responsibilities and what has to be taken care of and when it has to be taken care of. So We know everybody's life is unique and sometimes circumstances are different. So, there can be some variances there if you've, let's say, in the event that you have parents with unhealthy coping skills. It could be drug addiction, or it could be alcoholism, or it could even just be a felony record for something, and now life has become more difficult to navigate, and more responsibility has fell on you as a young person. More responsibility is there. So how do you handle that? It could be the loss of a parent. It's not so much the parent did anything wrong. It could be some unfortunate circumstances, a car accident or something that they didn't survive.
Mm-hmm.
Now that has literally altered the course of how responsible you have to be, how you have to prioritize, and what's going to be your strategic plan
Mm-hmm.
in order to acquire the things that you want in life.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention how many unexpected pregnancies. I mean, if you planning a pregnancy, that's one thing because you planning. So you're saving, you're doing these different things. But what happens when it just be like, oops,
Mm-hmm.
now what? That's
Mm-hmm.
another level of responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And parenthood is, I don't care what anybody says, parenthood is trial and error.
Mm-hmm.
It's trial and error. You have a baby, you do things for that particular baby, and they work, and then you add to the family, or you find some things that don't work. Now you got to switch your strategy. You figured out what works for that particular child. Now you have another child. Well, all the strategies and techniques you have that work with this current baby, they don't work with this second child. This child special. They do things differently.
That's
Now
what my
you need,
mom said about me and Bianca.
yes.
Talks about the difference between me and Bianca for real.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
She says that I was more uh well, she thought Bianca, she said her and Bianca would have discussions and they would come to an agreement. And whatever it was they agreed upon, whether it was Bianca did or did not do whatever it is they planned on it, Bianca did not do it. She may have pouted, she was angry, she was upset. Um, she may have had a tantrum, but she wouldn't do it. But she said, me on the other hand, she said, I would just look at her and tell her, okay, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And she said, I go and do what the F I wanted to do. So like if I gave her too many details about what it was that I wanted to do, she would know. So it would make it harder for me to see because if I had decided I was going to do it, I'm going to do it.
Mm-hmm. So, and same here. Like I was a strong-willed child. Um, I was this type. I knew the rules, right? It depended on how much fun I was having.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that I was going to get a whooping, or I was going to be on punishment if I stayed and continued to do what I was doing. So my question to myself would be, how much fun are you having? Are you having enough fun to get in trouble? Because you know trouble coming. Are you having enough fun to get in trouble? And sometimes my answer was like, yes, keep the party going. I'm going to keep going because I'm in trouble anyway. So I might as well live it up. And I never had a thought about the trouble. I was like, yeah, I'm going to get it. And then I go back to having fun. But then there were sometimes I was like, I'm not really having no fun. I'm getting ready to go home.
Mm-hmm.
Or I could get away with something on a Monday. I'll turn around and do it again on Wednesday and get beat for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I ain't getting no trouble on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm sure there was some differences in my siblings, the way that they did things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the order too. You're the oldest child. Bianca was the youngest. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was the youngest. So that if I ain't want to do it, I ain't doing it. And it just get in trouble. No, I'm not gonna do it.
Right.
So, and the oldest child interprets and does things a little bit differently because you actually get the best of your parent. Like you, the child, they trying all the experiments, right? They got all this energy to how to get you to comply and learn and do and all this stuff. That's when all the ideas is fresh. By the time you start having 2 and 3 and 4, you get tired because you've been doing this with these other ones. And so now you get to this one, you be like, just go ahead, go on. I don't even feel like fighting with you,
Mm.
So even in how they're raised, you get some variances, I think.
Okay.
So it's different. It's just different. And so people writing books about how to raise children and all this stuff. The truth is, if you have more than one, you done complicated your situation. So figuring out what works for that child is a process.
Yeah.
And then you want to be careful not to silence the child's creativity and voice, because you want them to know they have a voice, their voice is important. So where is the balance between discipline, right? The structure that needs to be there, because I feel all kids need that. You need the discipline and structure. But then on the other side, how do you encourage the expression of creativity, right? They're just being innovative.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be careful that you don't put the child in a box where they don't get to have that expression. And creative children are very different, and this is the same with adults, but creative children are very different from logical children, right? I'll use an adult example. Creative people usually have this abstract thought. Like they can pull pieces from everywhere. There's no rhyme or reason to it. They can pull it together, and at the end, they'll have a masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
But to the logical person, none of that makes sense. They see the masterpiece, but they're like, how you get there?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, well, what made you go right instead of left? And then you pull from the back. Why you didn't just pull from the bottom instead of the back? Like, we logical people look for step 1, step 2, step 3. Creativity and abstract thinkers do not do step 1, step 2. They need an interpreter, so logical people can get it and be like, oh,
Right. And I
I
can't
see it.
logic. Like, well, not that I can't. I see the concept, but then I sit down and I be like, okay, let's do this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
these butterflies get to fluttering around up in here,
Mm-hmm.
and I cannot catch them and put them in the net or the cage. I can't catch them. They are just, I'm just running around chasing them with my bullets, my bullet point. I just got a bunch of numbers, but I'm like, the butterflies just won't sit where they're supposed to on this.
So oftentimes when you have this abstract thinker, and it manifests in me in different ways, because I don't like concrete, like paintings, right? Pictures, the paintings. I love abstract work. Stuff
Mhm.
that you don't really know what it is, or all that stuff is just the colors swirled together in this, it has a pattern or something like that and looks really good. I love artwork like that, right? But the abstract thinker, when they're programming, because they have the ability to do all that, but usually what they are paired with is somebody who has a good balance between abstract and concrete concepts, who can interpret. They're bilingual.
Mhm.
There's a good one. They're bilingual. So being bilingual, they speak both languages. So they can be with the abstract person and be like, oh, here's what you want to do. Step
Mhm.
1, step 2. Like they can pull all the things that you said and organize it in a logical fashion.
Mhm.
A lot of people are not bilingual.
And
So,
that's where you help me.
but when you're bilingual, what happens is, because when you're creative, when you're an abstract thinker, then people look at you and be like, she's weird.
Mhm.
Yeah, she's strange. I don't know. It's something. Like
Mhm.
that's all they know. That's how the logical thinker looks at the abstract thinker. When you're bilingual, you say, okay, I can see that. You know,
Mhm.
you kind of listen and you be like, you just take it all down. It's like taking notes. You start writing it all down. And once you get it all together, then they say, okay, I'll be back. And they go transcribe.
Mhm.
And when they come back, they got a program like this is what it look like.
Mhm.
And I'm like, that is impressive.
Mhm.
But you have two types of thinkers on opposite ends of the extreme. You have your step one, step two, step three person. That's your logical thinker. It's got to be an organized fashion and steps. And then on the opposite end, you have your abstract thinker, and they get the concepts from everywhere. It's like, I don't know, pulling from the clouds and just different directions. And then afterwards, they have this masterpiece, but there's no rhyme or reason to how they got to the masterpiece.
Mhm.
And so, and then you have those two extremes. What do they need? A translator.
Mhm.
So now you get this bilingual person who speaks abstract and translates to concrete.
Mhm.
So now the abstract thinker's thoughts have been organized to say step one, step two, step three. And
Mhm.
then it's like, oh,
I'm gonna put this in my ADHD um, video. I'll put that portion because I've been listening to a lot of it because I made a reference to today as I was posting another video. Um, and it reminded me. So I started watching a couple of videos. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about this. That's what I was actually listening to earlier. Um, so a lot of what you're saying coincides with the way the ADHD brain operates.
mhm.
Yep. Well,
Really, really great ideas. It just needs to be structured or organized so that it could be beneficial or you can get the optimal benefit out of it. So
mhm,
sometimes it can be so disaggregated that you can't get an optimal benefit. So the
mhm,
structure has to come into play. Got to be organized to get that optimal experience.
mhm.
I'll say it like that. So
Well, I'm gonna have to wrap it up because I get my next appointment coming up. I got to drive to Little Rock, do this assignment real quick. But I surely appreciate it, and I can't wait to kind of structure and organize this video into the points, the appropriate points.
well,
So,
I can't wait to see how you do it.
yep,
I'm curious.
I told
I
you it was.
feel I feel like I'm the abstract one now, and you're the translator. You're gonna you're gonna slice and dice and be like, all right, this goes with this and this goes with that, and here are these steps.
Well, it's a partnership. So actually, your assignment earlier is kind of helping me even do that. So, yep,
Awesome.
yep. That's what I like about these candid conversations is that it's not necessarily scripted, but there's uh, a lot of magic that I feel like for me, I benefit from. I feel like it's magic, the stuff that comes out.
Well, I'm happy to have these conversations. Again, when you have conversations that inspire thought and creativity, or even inspire others, drop in maybe pearls of wisdom that they can utilize, I that's what I do. That's part of my communication. That's part of my language.
Hmm.
And my favorite quote is by an unknown author, but it states the pinnacle of excellence is not the accomplishment itself, but who you become on the journey.
Mm.
And so I love that because it talks about us evolving.
Hmm.
That's my interpretation of that. You know, you talked about degree attainment earlier today, right?
Hmm.
The degree is the accomplishment itself,
Right.
but you have all these experiences along the way that shape your character, that
Mm.
help you evolve. Like my listening assignment, right? I found out I was a terrible listener and I was able to take some techniques and improve how I listen. So that was part of evolving, part of the stages and the experiences, and how to interact with certain people. Right? There were different things that taught me that, because it wasn't that my academic career was challenge free. Oh no, Montfred, that wasn't the case at all. So it taught me how to navigate some circumstances and situations. I'll never forget my mentor who told me, somebody was kind of like, yeah, I'm gonna fail you and I don't understand what's going on with you. And I couldn't figure out why this lady had pinpointed me. I was like, I was admiring you. I don't even have anything that you have. I'm working on trying to get there. And she had decided that she was going to rally people and come that way. And he told me, he said, you need to do a letter and you need to compliment her in the letter and then ask her to document why it is she feel like you can't successfully complete. And I was like, what? Because I was stuck on compliment her. Like I hadn't got past that. Remember, I hadn't had my listening class yet. This was undergrad.
Okay.
So I was like, I had so much built up from how she was treating me that I couldn't think of anything nice to say about her. And before he told me I needed to write this letter, this is what he asked me. He said, how does this woman look? And I was like, well, was she, you see, and I never really got nothing out, right? He said, enough said. So he was just able to take my reaction and lack of vocabulary and figure that out, because I didn't want to say anything bad about the way this woman looked, right? Because I admired her. But I couldn't write that letter. He wrote the letter for me. And when I presented her with the letter and had my successful exit interview, all she could talk about was this letter. I had to talk to the other lady who was also in the interview about what I hope to accomplish and my strategy and all this stuff, because she didn't ask any of those questions. Every time she made a comment, all she talked about was that letter. And to this day, I still don't know what that letter said. But that's all she could focus on. It got her off my back. So remember when I told you about the strategy to navigate certain challenges and all that kind of stuff? Mentorship is so important. I don't think I would have survived to this particular point without mentorship. He was one. I had two, three, I'd say, male mentors, but then I had one, two, three, I probably had 4 or 5 female mentors. But they would teach me, all right, what are you dealing with? I was able to express, here's what's going on, here's what I noticed. I give them my observations. And they would say, based off of your observations, you can try this. They would make those suggestions. So I just benefited from it. I don't even know where I started at, how I ended up on mentorship, but just the interactions and being able to talk to people helped me to overcome barriers and challenges that I was facing that were beyond my control. It wasn't anything I initiated or did. I was just trying to, focus on what I needed to do. And these situations would arise. So something to contemplate and kind of think about. I think that's just the benefit of that.
Well, I'm gonna make it. I'm definitely have a topic in mind for that, for this. So don't you worry your pretty little head off. Somebody benefit from your mentorship.
Wow. So, okay. I can't wait to hear all about that, see how that works.
Okay. Yep. I'm structuring it as we speak. So I'm structuring it.